Heyo my sparks, Zane here, and today I will be making a chibi figure of my vampire child Vilde. If you've watched the June chibi video, you most likely heard of him. This video is actually intended to be just a background for a longer version of the 2nd anniversary video that I previously uploaded. But I figured I should also introduce Vilde properly since he's an OC or an original character of mine. It also just happens to be in time for this book season. So this video, again, is not going to be a step-by-step tutorial, but I will still be explaining some parts so you'll still learn something from it. I hope. Again, a quick reminder, link to the list of materials and tools I use and link to the facts page are in the description or simply scan this QR code. Please do check those pages out because I will no longer entertain any questions that are already answered there. With that said, let's start. Starting with making the body with a mold that I made myself using silicone putty. I will be making a separate video for that explaining how I made the body mold. It definitely shortened the time for me to sculpt the body, although it's not perfect and it has some flaws, but it still works and more efficient, so that's cool, right? While it's still soft, I went ahead and posed the body. I always want my figures to have dynamic poses so they will feel a bit more alive, but this pose is actually pretty challenging to work with. And while I let those dry completely, I went ahead and worked on creating the base since I also needed to dry completely. I am making the base out of scrap glaze. I will also make a video on how you can reuse dried out clay for future projects like what I'm doing here. Don't throw them away because you'll be saving a lot more if you do that. You can see there are still bigger chunks of clay here, and that's fine. Those chunks have softened as well, so it's not really a problem. This one is for the pants, but I decided not to include the clip where I put the pants on because I mostly worked out of frame, so it doesn't really make sense to include it. Because of how the legs are posed, it was tricky to wrap the clay around it, so what I did is slowly glue it onto each side with the help of the sculpting tools. I could actually cut the legs off from the torso, but I thought it would be faster to just add the pants this way instead. Cutting the legs means I need to reattach them and insert wires to strengthen the connection, which will make that process longer. Also, mixing the colors for this character was challenging because it was difficult to get the colors that I wanted. So it took me a few trial and error to get as close to the colors that I wanted. Note that there's a difference between traditional paint mediums and digital colors we see on our screen. So there are instances where digital colors can't be exactly achieved in traditional media. Usually, colors look more dull with paints compared to digital colors which look more bright and vivid. If you are using digital references like I do, I would suggest that you study additive and subtractive colors to have a better understanding on this if you don't know that yet. I first drew Vilde just as a random doodle. Then I thought to make him an original character of mine and gave him the name Vilde. His name origin doesn't really have any sort of actual meaning. It's just an anagram of the word devil, which is an irony because his character is actually the bubbly, friendly, enthusiastic, and optimistic type. But when searching, Vilde is actually used as a name and it has a Norwegian origin which can mean battle, fight, or warrior, which is pretty cool, I think. So I did talk about the story I was making for Vilde and Avi in the June Chibi video, but this time, let me expand on it. Vilde is one of the 7 immortal vampires, which have their own unique powers other than the usual ones like regeneration, superhuman strength, and super speed. Vilde's unique power is shape-shifting. His shape-shifting ability is only limited to transforming into animals. However, these unique powers can change after they enter a suppressed state. Not really sure if suppressed is the right term to call it though, but that's what I'll use to call it for now. Please do correct me if you know a better term. Anyway, the idea is that when they get stabbed with a wooden stake to the heart, they don't turn into ash nor die. Their heart will stop, but it will still continue to regenerate. However, it's slower than normal. Hence, they will be in a hibernation-like state or something until they fully recover from it and wake up. This recovery stage usually takes a decade. The 7 immortal vampires have their own world, and in this world they have a tradition where they hunt each other and then take their unique power. It's pretty much like a game for them since they can't actually die. They can only take someone's unique power by suppressing them. Once they are suppressed, all unique powers that they have will be transferred to the other vampire who suppressed them. Does that make sense? I hope you follow, but yeah. They will enter the suppressed state and gain a new unique power after reawakening. Of course, there's a limit to this process. Their unique powers will only last until the original owner reawakens. The vampires also have bat forms, which allows them to travel easily. When they are also badly hurt or injured, they also revert to their bat forms until they recovered enough to go back to their human forms. These vampires don't necessarily need to feed on human blood, and they can actually control their thirst for it. They can feed on any animal, but human blood is still much more tasteful for them. They can turn humans into mixed vampires by feeding them a certain amount of vampire blood. However, mixed vampires only inherits the basic abilities or power of the immortal ones. Mixed vampires are not as immortal as the pure-blooded vampires. Their regenerative power can't keep them alive when they are stabbed with a wooden stake. They will slowly expire and turn into ash. And most of all, these vampires don't sparkle under the sun, okay? They also don't turn into ashes under the sun because of their regenerative power. But long exposure under the sun greatly burns their skin. They will look like walking burnt corpses if they walk under the sun. And imagining that is kind of funny and maybe scary, but yeah. So that's about it. I'm not sure if I missed anything actually. It was a long time ago since I developed the story or the lore for Vilde, but I do hope you find it interesting and let me know what you think in the comments. I also struggled a bit in adding his coat since its shape is a little irregular. I decided to just separate the front and back sides to make it easier for me. If you noticed, I didn't include the arms in the body mold that I made. That's because I think it's not really that difficult to make them. I could also refer to the body for the size reference. The hair is also one of my biggest struggles here. First off, I'm not really sure how his hair works. I just know it's kind of curly, but not too curly, and it's also a little messy. I did try to make sense of how his hair works through the sketch, but translating it to the 3D form is still something else. So I just did my best to arrange his hair in a way that looks pretty alright. And then I just focused more on the overall silhouette. I also looked at Nendoroids for reference in making his curly hair. There's still a lot of room for improvement, but it's alright to take things slow. I'm sure I'll level up in this aspect, I just really need more experience. And the biggest hurdle of all, the wings! I was actually pretty hesitant in adding the wings because I know how tricky it is in making the armature and all. But if I leave it out, the pose will not exactly make sense. He will look like he's sitting on an invisible chair. I made some wings before, but I wasn't exactly happy with how the surface on it turned out. I also think it's still pretty fragile despite the armature I made for it, so I want to make sure that this time I make the armature right. However, there's still an issue with the armature in the end. A part of it is sticking out in one of the wings, and I made one connection too thick. It would be better to use a thinner wire, but the thinner wire that I have isn't actually the sturdy one. I bought the wrong kind of wire apparently. It's hard to shape it because it doesn't stay as I intended, so I have to make do with what I have. Anyway, I think it still ended up pretty alright in the end. I'm still happy with how this turned out.
Hey Zane, what's with the sparks thing?
Well, good thing you ask, because I will now be calling my supporters Sparks, or Spark. According to one of the definition of spark from Merriam-Webster, spark could mean something that sets off a sudden force. And let me elaborate. My usual motto when things get a little hard is to keep my fire burning. A lot of times it's easier to let it just burn out than actually keep it burning, you know what I mean? And ever since I started this channel, I started to get some support from you. Your positive and supportive messages are like a spark that reignites my fire every time I need it. I would always go back to those whenever I'm having doubts about my works. Your kind messages means a lot to me, and I really appreciate all of that. So yeah, that's what sparks mean, and I am hoping that you like the term. Do comment sparks with the sparkle emoji if you do. Thank you so much for watching until here. Like, share, and subscribe if you want to see more content like this one, and hit that bell icon to be notified as soon as a new video is up. I hope you take care, stay safe, and stay crafty. Bye!